there, welcome to AMC Rewind. Rewind. I'm Alicia Malone. This is the show for classic film lovers and classic film newbies. With me, as always, is my AMC Rewind co-host, taking a short break from editing his movie, Mr. John Schnepp.
Re-edit. Re-edit. Hey, what's going on? Happy to be here. Rewind.
He also breaks rides at amusement parks.
I
but
do.
We'll talk about
Just
that later.
telling an early story.
And joining us on AMC Rewind, she's the co-host of FX Movie Download, also one of the smartest and funniest and most fun ladies I know, Sasha Pell-Raver.
Thank you so much. I'm rewinding. I'm so excited. This is going to be fun.
You're the first guest that has actually done it. Most people are like, I decline.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the whole point.
Well, we're excited today because we are talking about Martin Scorsese. Mm-hmm. Now, he has to be one of the greatest living American filmmakers. He's got like 12 Oscar nominations. Of course, he's just won one for The Departed, Best Director. But he is so fantastic at telling a story, particularly a rise and fall of a gangster. Schnepp, what do you love about Scorsese and his films?
I love his like gritty, hardcore realism, and just that he really thinks about scenarios and the scenes and how best to shoot them, how best to play them, how much leeway to give the actor, and how much when to pull them back in. And he's really good. I mean, if you watch his films one after the other, they're paced incredibly well. Mm-hmm. He cares about the music, how the music interacts with the scenes. He cares about what the characters say, how the stories impact everyone, not just the main character. All of his side characters are actually main characters because everybody matters in this world that he creates. I mean, it doesn't matter what film it is, whether it's Goodfellas or whether it's Griffin Dunn in that like crazy After Hours movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many fantastic films that he's made that are just fun to watch. He's one of the ultimate filmmakers, I would think. He has his own style, yet he's able to adapt and make things work within other worlds, within other genres. So he's a fantastic filmmaker. I know we're not going to talk about all of his films. We're going to touch on a couple of them, but his entire world of films that he's made are all fantastic.
Yeah, make sure you let us know in the comments below. What are some of your favorite Scorsese films? Sasha, is it easy to whittle it down to just a few?
No, I think it's impossible. I was thinking about that too as I was going back sort of over the canon of Scorsese. And he has made so many different kinds of films, but they're all operas in their own way. There are these beautiful, sweeping, grand, gritty, real, crazy movies. And you can see the trademarks of all of the best filmmakers that influenced him and how he has made such an incredible impact on every filmmaker working today. I mean, I think about his work, I get the chills, and I remember the first time I saw Goodfellas and how much that affected how I saw film from that point on, what I expected from a director. And what he's been able to do specifically with Robert De Niro, I don't know that we will ever see a pairing like the two of them ever again.
Right.
Yeah, he works really well with actors. He came to prominence in the 70s, but he's still going. Silence will be coming out later this year. It's incredible that he still has this energy, even at his age.
Yeah, it's fun that you mentioned De Niro. I think his new team up is Leo.
Yeah.
Like his new guy that he's like, hey, you're going to be in every one of my movies. And if you're not, you're going to be in the second
Shutter
one.
Island,
yeah,
come
right.
on,
Hey,
let's do
Shutter
this
Island,
thing.
let's come on. It's not the best Scorsese movie. There's some moments. You know?
Yeah, often has religious overtones, a lot of violence, but I like that the violence isn't there for no reason. It's there really to make an impact and to say something about the characters.
And when you mention religious overtones, let's talk about the most religious overtone, The Last Temptation of Christ, one of his most fantastic films. It's an incredible vision of the story of Jesus Christ told by a very religious guy and in questioning certain things and asking questions about Christ, you find out so much more about him. Some people would rack on like Harvey Keitel's New York accent as Jewish, hey, Jesus, hey, you know. But I loved every moment of that film, including Peter Gabriel's fantastic score. Once again, music and
is so
film,
music,
the
yeah.
combination that he is just so fantastic about melding the two. I mean, people always forget cinema, filmmaking is half of it is the sound design. I mean, as we break it all up into quarters, like you say, the writing, then the actual directing, acting, then the editing, and then the sound. So it is 1/4 of it, but he's a master of all of them.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that as I was heading over here, not to give any spoilers away yet, but we have a lot of good soundtracks to discuss today.
Yeah.
But Scorsese consistently has made music a character in everything that he's done, and his also collaboration with the Rolling Stones, I think, has been something.
Think of in Mean Streets, the jumping jack flash moment.
Come on.
So great.
So great.
Visceral, and it really affects you and affects you emotionally as well. Well, let's get into a couple of movies that Rewind recommends. We've already spoken about Goodfellas on this show before, so let's turn our attention to Taxi Driver, one of these great collaborations.
Taxi Driver with jazz hands.
It's probably never been done before. Are you jazzing with me? Are you jazzing with me? Starring Robert De Niro as the mentally unstable Vietnam vet Travis Bickle, who works as a taxi driver at night. Also stars Sybil Shepherd, Harvey Keitel's a pimp, and a very young Jodie Foster as teenage prostitute Iris. Nominated for 4 Oscars and no wins.
Harvey Keitel is always a pimp, by the way.
He's always a pimp.
Always.
He's always pimping.
Yeah.
And what I love about this film is how it looks really beautiful, and the score by Bernard Herrmann, this great jazz
Fantastic.
score,
So
is so haunting but also beautiful. So I like the juxtaposition between the cinematography and then what it's exploring.
Just even the opening, you're just talking about the music, the opening, just the shot of the light with the taxi slowly like a shark kind of coming through the streets with the music and slow motion almost. I mean, it's fantastic. It sets the tone right away. You're like, oh, this is going to be a very strange, weird film right the first 10 seconds of the film.
Yeah, Travis Bickle, he's an interesting character, an avenging angel, and really a product of the 70s.
Mm-hmm. When I think about that character, I feel like I knew about the character and the taglines before I ever saw the movie. I mean, what is more iconic than you talking to me, right? When you think about that performance, when you think about the way it was shot and all of the pieces that came together in that film, it is such a time capsule of the distress that you saw coming out of the Vietnam War, about a different kind of filmmaking that people expected. And Sybil Shepherd, I have to say, a stunningly beautiful woman.
So beautiful.
Never more beautiful than in this film. Right. And Jodie frickin' Foster. I mean, she was 14?
Yeah, I think so.
13 when she made this movie?
Really young.
How can you look at somebody like that and go, okay, they're capable of this kind of performance? And I mean, it's so mind-boggling to rewatch. And also, I think that the violence in that film in particular changed how we saw violence in film because it became really artistic. That final climactic scene, which is so brutal and gory, is operatic.
And it's funny you mentioned that the violence in that scene, originally the blood was bright red. And the MPAA was like, it's a rated X, you got to get rid of that. So they turned, in color correction, they turned it black. And not only did then the MPAA say, okay, it's fine, but it made it viscerally more horrific. And the way that the Taxi Driver sequences of horror and violence, kind of the way Martin Scorsese shoots violence in general, is fast and quick and violent. In a certain sense, in the way real violence takes place. It's not this kind of like staged, I punch you, then you punch me. It's like awkward, weird, things break, someone stubs their toe, and then they get stabbed in the neck. And then that wasn't supposed to happen. Handless, blood, weird thing, dude crawling, someone else in the background crying, camera shaking. It's all the horror of violence is what Scorsese was always able to capture so well. And like you say, operatically beautiful, but so disturbing. And Taxi Driver really has that amazing build up, and even then build up, and then and then another, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, this is an incredible performance by De Niro. He worked as a taxi driver for a bit to study Harvey Keitel, did speak with actual pimps to get into his character. And as you say, the violence is interesting. It's hard to watch, but because it shows the consequences of violence, I think that's what makes it more interesting rather than glamorizing violence. It also has a lot to say politically, and I think it still works today if you're watching it for the first time now.
Absolutely.
I love the characterization Schrader, the writer, was able to bring to this Travis Bickle character, just how detached he is from even being able to talk to the opposite sex, not even understanding, like, I'm taking you to an X-rated movie, like not even
that
able
scene is so
with
great.
Sybil Shepherd. It's just like the disconnect of being able to talk to another person.
Which makes you almost feel for him in a way.
Right, because he's alone, he's driving a taxi. How do you connect in this weird world? And it's like, some people don't, and then they get mentally ill. So this, like, it was a really well thought out script, and it's just brought to the next level with Robert De Niro, and then the next level with Scorsese.
I had an interesting thought when I was thinking about Paul Schrader, because his most recent film was The Canyons.
Right.
And you start to wonder how much of his capability was the writing and how much is the director that he's paired with.
Well, but that's part of it. I mean, you have to start with a really strong script, and then you are, as a director, you're able to bring more to it visually, and with the actors involved, you're able to add layers, and that's the beauty of making films and television is it's a team effort, and everyone kind of teams up together, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like you said, like Schrader's been very successful, and in some cases not as successful.
Right.
So it really depends.
It's a piece of magic, and you don't really know why. Sometimes all the elements are great, and then it doesn't work.
Right.
And sometimes it can seem like a weird mix, and then it becomes a masterpiece like
I
this.
mean, and Scorsese's had a couple of filmic duds, so to speak. I would say Bringing Out the Dead. I think that one comes to mind.
Actually, Bringing Out the Dead, if you rewatch it, is pretty damn great.
I'm just saying
seen
it's
it in a
not on
long
the
time.
level.
Yeah.
No, I remember. I just like you have this level of like there's movies and then there's
Yeah,
Scorsese
and then
movies. So
there's-
can he be on his own level all the time? Sometimes he drops down to regular movies. You know
Okay,
what I mean? That's
Gangs
what
of
I'm
New
saying.
York.
I actually liked Gangs of New
I
York.
liked it too,
Yeah.
and I feel
I didn't
like
like Cameron Diaz, but I like.
No, but see, a lot of people had problems with Gangs of New York, but I just liked it as a thing. It's like it's almost not even real. It's like, hey, look at this surreal fantasy idea of and it was based on reality. Like, isn't it weird that it was all broken up into sections and these dudes actually ruled these areas?
Yeah, but it
with an
does get a
iron
little
fist?
Tarantino-y at certain points.
Totally,
You're
and
like,
costume
oh, this is what the
designers.
World War II was like. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but
Little
Taxi Driver is
crazy
one.
with the top hats and hey,
Yeah.
I'm wearing this weird dandy color stuff. Do they really wear that? Not really.
But it looks good. Just go shoot it.
They
I
were
like
doing
that
the
movie, though.
Warriors come up, but it was like Gangs of New York style. They just didn't have the little guy with the clink, 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 clink guy, But
All right, Aviator.
I actually really loved The Aviator.
Yeah, me
I thought it was a
too.
fantastic film.
Shutter
Yeah.
Island.
Yes.
Nope.
Like
Nope.
Shutter
I
Island.
did
Nope.
not like Shutter
I
Island.
liked it, and I stand by
found
my
it-
liking it.
Give us
Why?
3 reasons.
Why?
Reason 1,
Three?
it can't be Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio.
that was going to be my
I know it
reason.
was. What's
and
reason?
the ending.
Well, the
which
ending.
I did not see coming.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
Well, that
interesting.
was actually one of the reasons why I was like, how could you? Oh, come on.
and it has a great mood that permeates through it.
I liked the first.
Haunting.
I liked the first hour of it, and then as every minute continued, I liked it less.
I
So-
haven't revisited it in a while, so maybe I'll
I
feel
never
differently
revisited
now.
it.
We're
I
not
saw the
saying
one
to
time.
rewind Shutter Island.
No.
We were talking about Taxi Driver
All
right
right,
now.
well,
Taxi Driver, you must rewind.
Taxi Driver, Rewind recommends. And another great Scorsese film that Rewind recommends is Raging Bull from 1980, starring Robert De Niro again as boxer Jake LaMotta, who is battling with anger and violence in his life in and out of the ring. This is one of the best sports films ever made, and yet it's not really a sports film. And it's also one of the best biopics ever made,
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
not really a biopic.
Right.
It's an interesting mix.
Yeah. Well, I would say right off the bat is just the way every single fight scene is told differently, shown differently, and filmed differently. I mean, it's told in certain senses from his perspective. Sometimes it's told from the viewer's perspective. Sometimes it's told from how he interpreted it in his own mind. I mean, this is one of the reasons Robert De Niro is one of the all-time greatest actors to come around in cinema. This film particularly is before Christian Bale lost all that weight in The Machinist.
Yeah.
You had this guy gaining 70 pounds, eating like packing on lasagnas.
Yeah,
I was like,
in the
can I
3
get
or
that
4
job?
months while they were filming.
I mean,
Yeah.
he pounded out. That was not special effects. He was fat like me, and then he lost the weight. So I was like, hey, Robert De Niro, you earned some special credibility right there. And he was great as the fat old Jake LaMotta, kind of washed up, trying to be a comedian, failing horribly, like
Yes.
still kind of lost a little bit. You always felt bad for this character, like throughout the whole movie. He had this weird rage that he didn't know how to channel it, so he took it out on everyone. He took it out on his brother. He took it on his wife. He took it out on people in the
anger.
ring, And then at the end, he was just kind of just taking out on himself.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a look at masculinity and jealousy and violence. And you're speaking about operatic, Sasha.
Oh, yeah.
The opening of this movie is so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And there's so many shots in this movie that are also similar to the You Talking to Me iconic. I mean, even just the way he uses flash bulbs in this movie.
Yes, and the crunchy sound.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And he's always been a fan of a Hitchcock blonde. Kathy Moriarty in this movie. I mean, just beyond. But there is a sweeping, swelling anger and angst and hatred and venom that builds up in this movie that is so, like you said, it looks at the human condition. It looks at what being a man is about. It looks at anger and how that's expressed. And it's something that I think is very difficult because you look at that sort of like mano a mano violence And he tells such a story with every punch. With each time something connects, you feel something different. You understand something on a different level. It's just phenomenal.
I was gonna say too, the quiet moments in that film when they're like sitting at their dining room table with him and Joe Pesci, and there's just that misunderstanding that
Joe
turns
Pesci's
into,
so good.
and you know it while you're watching it. You're like, come on,
Like,
no,
no, calm
is this
down.
gonna happen? And it just escalates into like what you would never expect. Let me also mention that this is another film that's in black and
I
white.
was going to say, what
Go
do you
ahead.
think black and white does for this movie in particular?
This black and white for this film in particular really blends it, like you were saying, an operatic feeling and also a feeling of something immediately from the past. Even though when it came out and you saw it in black and white, you could have seen it in color, it could have been shot in color, but it was a conscious decision to make it in black and white to emphasize, I think, the contrasts that this character went through. I think it's a really bold decision to go with black and white nowadays, especially because most viewers, you guys are like, we don't watch black and white, or I've never seen a black and white movie. Why? Because it's black and white. I mean, if it really, you got to give up on that and like start watching some amazing films that you're not seeing because they're simply devoid of color. Guess what? When you go to sleep, your mind doesn't dream in black and white. It dreams in color. No, it doesn't. I'm just making that up. But you should see this movie. It
Well, the
doesn't-
black and white too isn't just black and white. I mean, it is the most contrasting chiaroscuro of black, white. There's not a lot of gray tone.
Right.
It's really deep, dark, inky black
It's
and
stark.
really vibrant white. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it feels like a newspaper almost at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because people often think of black and white films as being from the 30s or the 40s, but this was 1980. We've spoken about The Elephant Man, same era as that. Yeah, and it's really interesting choice when filmmakers go for black and white, and it does add something to the movie. And this is a very different performance for De Niro than Travis Bickle. It was also his passion project. He convinced Scorsese to take this on. He traveled to the Caribbean to pitch it to Marty while Marty was getting over his cocaine addiction. And they spent 2 weeks just working solidly on the script. So this is another piece of movie magic where the actor and the director just work so well together.
Yeah,
definitely.
their collaboration is phenomenal. And I don't know that you can imagine any two other people making something like this right now. And the fact that it was in black and white, there was sort of that 1950s throwback right around the 80s where everything was a little bit, that's when, whatever. But I think it's an artistic choice that goes also into the mentality of the character. And that's what I love so much. But I would have loved to have been there as he's detoxing.
Yeah.
How do you have this conversation? And why choose this film to be your next project when you've gone through what you've gone through? I think that says a lot about Scorsese's state of mind, too. Not just that Robert De Niro was like, oh, I have this thing and I really love to do it. That he said, I want to delve into this now. After going through what I've gone through, I think that says a lot. And I think you can see it when you watch the movie.
Yeah, it's anger issues and issues of not being able to control yourself.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say it's
when-
control stuff.
When you are an addict of any kind, you are out of control.
Yep, which is
and
a
trust
scary
issues,
feeling.
whether or not you're able to trust yourself, if you can trust your super hot wife, you can trust Joe Pesci, and we all know you can't trust Joe
Yeah,
Pesci.
well, this was Pesci's breakout role because De Niro and Scorsese found him in a B movie from 1975 called The Death Collector.
Nice.
I haven't seen it,
I haven't seen it.
but I'd like to
Was
see
it
that.
called The Death Collector?
The Death
I like that
Collector.
title.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. It'll be remade next week. All right, let's take a break from Scorsese for Rewind Remembers, where we talk about the films turning 20 years old and 30 years old this week. So, 20 years ago, While You Were Sleeping came out. This was the huge rom-com hit starring Sandra Bullock as a lonely fare collector who has a crush on Peter, a handsome commuter. She saves his life, pretends to be his fiancé while he's in a coma, and then she falls for his brother, played by Bill Pullman. And it's also been 20 years since the release of Friday, starring Ice Cube, Chris Tucker, Bernie Mac. About two unemployed dudes have to pay a drug dealer some money. It all takes place within 16 hours. This was the directorial debut of F. Gary Gray, who is directing the upcoming NWA biopic, Straight Outta Compton, with Ice Cube and Ice Cube's son. And Friday was a huge success and spawned 2 sequels. So, Sasha, what do you remember about seeing these 2 movies?
Well, I know that these 2 films we're about to discuss, one of them is a classic.
And one of them I can't remember.
No, I totally remember it. I had a lot of hatred towards Sandra Bullock because I was super in love with Keanu Reeves growing up. So the fact that you got to kiss him in Speed, I had like so much venom. This is a John Turteltaub movie, by the way, which
Yeah.
always cracks me up too. I remember seeing this movie and I remember thinking like, oh, that's so sweet. But the movie that I truly remember and love with all of my heart is Friday. Come on. The fact that just now, 20 years later, Bye Felicia is coming into common parlance.
Oh, is that where it comes from?
Of course it's where it comes from.
See, I am not as familiar with Friday as While You Were Sleeping.
It is so much fun.
man.
I need to revisit it now.
Friday is so good. And I know you guys talked about Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood last week. This, when you rewatch this movie, it's even better than that.
This
but
movie
it goes
is
in that same
so
zone.
much fun.
It's so
I mean,
fun.
it really literally is like the drinking 40s, hanging out, just watching stuff happen and just the dumb stuff that happens in your neighborhood. It literally is one of these things where these guys are thrown into this weird situation. I love that. I can't remember the actor's name. He's got the weird eye. He's
like little tiny.
Yeah, Tiny or whatever his name is. Oh, he is so great
him.
in this film. And that they're all afraid of him, too.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that one dude.
Well, he always plays that part now, too.
Yeah, no,
and it's Chris Tucker before he, joined up with Jackie Chan and started trying too hard.
Right. This is Chris Tucker when he was actually super funny.
Yeah.
I mean, when
And
he
Ice
tried
Cube
a little
before he had to, take his kids everywhere.
Well, yeah, but I like Ice Cube and I liked his transformation. I mean, it was fun because I was listening to NWA back in the day and it was really fun. Like, well, he's got some comic timing and he's actually can act as well as, being a badass band, a super cool rap group with like cool Dre tones and all these things. He's like, Friday was actually really funny. I mean, I just remember loving that film.
And F. Gary Gray is more talented than I think people give him credit for. The Italian Job is a really solid action movie. It might not be as good as the original, but it's still really good. I thought that the one he did with Gerard Butler, Public Enemy or whatever, not Public Enemy, that was...
I know what you mean.
But that one was pretty solid, and I think the NWA biopic is going to be fantastic.
I cannot wait to see that.
Me too.
I have to rewatch Friday. I think I saw it once. I remember seeing
it's
it.
So funny.
But I have very spotty memories. I do remember While You Were Sleeping, I used to have a big crush on Bill Pullman.
You did?
But this just seemed like such a...
What happened?
Just,
Where did it come from?
I think it was Independence Day. Anything where he was like president or someone in charge. I was like, Bill Pullman, I love him. I love him so much.
Wow.
But
I liked him in Lost Highway.
Oh, yeah, yes.
That's not where she fell in love with him.
Lost Highway, though. But this While You're Sleeping just seemed like such a convenient rom-com.
Yeah.
It's very standard. But
I missed it. I must have
20
been
years old.
sleeping. I passed on. I didn't see it. So.
Well, 30 years ago this week, a film called Stick came out. I have not seen this, but this sounds amazing because it's a crime film starring Burt Reynolds. It's based on a book by Elmer Leonard, who also wrote Get Shorty and Out of Sight. It's directed by Burt Reynolds. It opened at #1, but only made $8 million from a $22 million budget and got really bad reviews.
Alicia, let me go into this period of Burt Reynolds land.
Yes,
because he made a movie with your last name. It was called Malone.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it in the
Malone.
theater. I was a little kid, and I was like, Malone with Burt Reynolds. And I remember seeing Sharky's Machine. I can't remember if I saw Stick, but one of those movies had Burt Reynolds fighting like a guy, an albino. The albino was the murderer or something. It was like, I can't remember if it was Stick or Sharky's Machine, so I'm confusing the two. You guys can correct me on the comment section. Be like, Snap, you idiot, it was Sharky's Machine.
This
But I
sounds
think it's
fantastic.
Stick.
I've never seen this, and I am so intrigued. You've also got Annie Potts in this.
Yeah, Candace Bergen.
Can't go wrong with either of those.
Did he direct many movies?
No, he didn't.
Burt?
But this is that Burt Reynolds period that I like. I love the Smokey and the Bandit, but this is that weird period where he's like doing weird stuff like Malone, Sharky's Machine, and Stick. So you got to see those three in a row. Do that trilogy of Burt Reynolds. Yeah.
He's an interesting character, and I love when he came back in Boogie Nights.
Has anybody read this Elmore Leonard story?
No. It's
We
not one
just
I've
know
heard of.
it's a dude. The mob took his money.
But this
killed
is
his
why
best friend.
this is why I love.
Beautiful guy.
Yeah. This is why I love
And
rewinding.
he's not about to be the loser. Stick.
I would just love to see Burt Reynolds on set as the director. I mean, what does his mind work like? How
Boy.
besides just action and cut, what else does he do? I mean,
Be
I'm
like,
sure it would be
get a
sexy.
close up of that little stick over there in the corner. It is called Stick after. Who knows? Maybe he was really good. I don't know. I can't remember. Stick is.
Well, obviously,
that's 30
he did
years
not
ago.
make quite the impression
No.
he
Yeah.
might
It
have
didn't really
hoped.
work out. Yeah.
30 years later. All right. Well, this week, instead of choosing a Scorsese movie for our hidden gem, we thought we'd do something a little bit different and choose a director who's a bit of a hidden gem, someone who came to prominence at about the same time as Scorsese. We're talking about Hal Ashby. In particular, we recommend Harold and Maude from 1971. This was a box office failure when it was released. It's now a cult classic, a dark romantic romantic comedy about a depressed 20-year-old guy, Harold, obsessed with death and suicide, who falls in love with a kooky 79-year-old woman, Maud, starring Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon, and featuring great music, speaking about music and soundtracks, from Cat Stevens. Jeanette, this is a great movie because it's so dark and it's funny at the same time.
Absolutely love this movie. So also Bud Cort, amazing performance in Harold and Maude. He was also in Brave New World, which was a crazy TV adaptation of Aldous Huxley's science fiction novel. It was also had the guy from 2001, Keira Dulia. I recommend that as a TV weirdo experience. But man, Harold and Maude, what a fantastic, macabre, weird film. And I love it. I love the chances that it took with this suicidal, very depressed kid who discovers how to live through this old woman who is magical. Her life, she doesn't care anymore, but that's what makes her so much fun. She's free.
Yeah.
And she explores her freedom, and he gets the ability to not feel depressed and alone because he's hanging out with her. And a lot of people got weird about like, oh, it's a weird thing that this little guy, this younger guy is with this so much older woman. And it's like, it's not even about that. What they're trying to say is like, you have to live your life, you know, and you have to enjoy your life for what it is. So I love this movie. It's such a great film.
Sasha, Maud is the original manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah.
Isn't she? Just an older version.
Which you can see also in other Hal Ashby work. I mean, if you look at like what he did with Goldie Hawn and Shampoo, I think this is like the 79-year-old version of that. She's so incredible in this movie. And Hal Ashby was such a kook himself that I'm sure he inspired a lot of the performance because he was a nut. He was an incredibly talented nut who probably sabotaged his own career, which is why we don't know about him the way we know about a Scorsese. Right. But the love story between these two, also the suicide attempts that you get to see him act out are so brilliant. And when you watch this movie, you realize how much Hal Ashby has inspired people like Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach and Richard Ayoade into the movies that they make today. And that quirky, weird, wonderful character eccentricity, and that being the thing that makes you fall in love with these people makes me love his work so much more, because it's not about the Sandra Bullocks and the Bill Pullmans. It's about the weird and the terrible driving and the bad mistakes, and that's the stuff that makes you love these characters, because you're like, that's insane, and I totally relate to it on a level that is maybe a little bit hyperbolic, but in the best possible ways.
Yeah, I love how this began as a thesis film for a UCLA student. It was supposed to just be a 20-minute short film, but you know, it didn't do well, as we said. Apparently, people were pretty shocked when it came out in cinemas because of the age difference. But then slowly through midnight screenings, it became a big success. And I think it finally made money in 83 or the early 80s. So suddenly it was making a profit. Do you think this could be a film or a type of film that would get made today, or is it more of a product of the 70s?
I think it's a product of the 70s, and I don't know if this film in itself would get made today, but I think filmmakers who are taking chances are like a Nicholas Winding Refn, or people who are taking chances with narrative and story are from this same breed, this ability to like, I'm not going to tell the same story. I'm going to take a new step. I'm going to try to express myself differently for those few who care about it. And it's like, that's the kind of thing that you always want to have continuously happening in cinema, is people taking chances. Look, we're going to have these blockbusters. That's what the business, it's a business, is made about. It's about making money. And then you also have people who are like, look, I don't care about making that much money as long as I turn a profit and I'm able to get into some theaters. And then you have people who are just like, I don't care about money at all. And I'm going to make what I can because I'm going to make it. And those are the people you want a good mixture of that in the mix called cinema, you know?
Well, I like this. Colin Higgins, who wrote the film, said he has a theory of why it worked with younger audiences. Says, we are all Harold and we all want to be Maud. We're all repressed and trying to be free, to be ourselves, to be vitally interested in living, to be everything we want. And that's why it's so timeless.
Yeah.
He was right in what he said.
I agree. I concur. But I think there's no way in hell that this movie would be made now. No way. Women aren't allowed to age nowadays. There's no way that they could make this sort of story, and people would freak out about the age difference. I remember when I first heard about this movie, I thought it was going to be in like the Last Tango in Paris.
Wow, right.
vein.
Yeah, because you don't really know until you see it.
And then
what
I saw it and I
is.
was like, this is not salacious. This is
Right.
not dirty.
No.
But I think nowadays people would absolutely freak out. It would never get past. Even like I've got a pitch meeting and I've got an
Right.
idea. They'd be like, ugh, 79-year-old woman.
You know what?
Ah,
Let's do the focus groups
ugh,
on that.
I don't think this will work.
That's
Here,
all
we'll
the
put-
more reason
put
someone
Scarlett Johansson
someone
in a
should
gray
ma-
wig.
Someone should make a movie like this because that's all the more reason why you just said that. I think it's like our stigmatisms that exist now should be destroyed, and there's no reason they should be there. And every time a good movie comes out that destroys a specific kind of like, well, she's too old or he's out of touch or this or that. Once a movie comes out that's successful and breaks it, then you break a little bit more of that, chip away at some stupidity. So, I mean, we've built up a great wall of stupidity. Got to break it down. you
Break
I
know?
it
like
down
that as
bit
an
by
idea,
bit.
and I wish that was true. But I think even look at like Lost in Translation. People were a little bit freaked out by the Scarlett Johansson Bill Murray romance. They thought that was too much of an age difference. I think that maybe you could do it with a man and a woman, but I think that there is just too much misogyny to make it work with an older woman and a younger man. I think people would freak out.
The thing I like about this movie is you do buy the romance.
You do.
You do.
They have so much chemistry together, and
Yeah.
you love both of them so much. And it also plays a lot into that sort of Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield thing, where I think that he's so lost in these beautiful ways, and she is so knowledgeable. And you do want to be her. You do want to have that outlook in life and approach everything the way that she does. I mean, not the driving. The driving, especially in LA, is terrifying.
That's right.
In her Beetle, just like.
Heavy recommendation for y'all to see this movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely. We definitely recommend that you watch Harold and Maude, as well as rewatching or watching for the first time some Scorsese classics, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. Let us know in the comments below what you think of the show, any recommendations that you have that you want people to see, and also some suggestions for future topics. I love reading all your comments. Okay, Schnepp, where can people find you online?
Well, you guys can find me just at Twitter and Instagram, John Schnepp, at John Schnepp, and at TDOSLWH. Go to TDOSLWH.com to find out where my film, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, is going to be playing over the next 3 months. We're releasing it worldwide, digitally, July 9th at Comic-Con. So if you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, I'm going to have a booth there. We're going to have posters and all that stuff. Or you could just buy it online starting July 9th. And if you're in the LA area, you can come to the Egyptian Theater. We're having our red carpet premiere on April 30th. That's right, in 10 days. Oh my God! In 10 days, we're having our red carpet. And then May 1st and 2nd, you can get tickets available. They're available on fandango.com. So rock on.
Yeah, you've been working so hard on this film. I can't wait to see the final product. So everyone out there, if you love Schnepp, please support his movie. And it sounds like a really fascinating documentary.
Alicia.
I cannot wait to see it. Now, Sasha Pelway, Raver, thanks so much for joining us. Where
Thanks
can
for
people
having me.
find you?
Twitter, Instagram, at Sasha Pearl Raver, and every Friday on FX. FX Movie Download at 8 o'clock.
Nice. Thanks for coming. And you
for
can
having
find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the rest at Alicia Malone. This is the episode of AMC Rewind. And we'll see you next time. Bye.